Hello and welcome back to the Homes Politicast. We've got quite a show for you today. First up, my conversation with Robyn Afrik about the DE&I office, along with the last County Board of Commissioners meeting with an excerpt from Grand Valley State University about diversity and inclusion and all that stuff and why it's so important. The Grand Haven Tribune notices some problems in the political landscape here in Ottawa County with a non-resident on the City Council. I don't think that's supposed to be happening. Ottawa County is training for mass shootings. Will this help? We'll find out. Also, Pete Bittigieg, Secretary of Transportation, makes his home here in Michigan and is expected to run as governor, according to one source. And finally, the legislature makes an appeal to the courts to allow laws to be enforced rather than courts arbitrarily striking them down. I'm Anon Don, and this is the Homes Politicast. All right. So, my first order of business, I promised you an interview with Robyn Afrik, and I was able to have the conversation with her. She had some other guests there as well, some partners that she works with, and so we didn't do a recording of it. She has agreed to a recorded interview in the future, probably in a couple weeks. So, we're going to have to wait for that. But I will talk about a little bit of what we talked about. And I want to be clear, I'm still not convinced that Ottawa County needs a diversity, equity, and inclusions office. But I would encourage any concerned citizen to talk to Miss Afrik. She's a very nice lady. I had a decent conversation with her. She listened to all of my concerns. There was a lot of analogies, which I don't find necessarily convincing. But let's jump into it. So, first off, I talked about our partnership with Gare. And I want to note that I talked to both Matt Fenske and Greg DeYoung. Greg DeYoung said he didn't want to comment because he hadn't researched the issue. And I find it odd that our county commissioner that approves budgets has not researched the associations that we have. But I allowed that. I said, okay, we won't discuss that, but looks a little strange. Now, Matt Fenske did say we are definitely not partnered with Gare. We use some of their tools. He explained the analogy of the toolbox. If you saw the interview that I did with him, then he was talking about, oh, you need all these tools in your toolbox, and we take some from here and some from there. And so Miss Afrik was very open. She said, yeah, we're partnered with them. We've been partnered with them since 2015, even before actually, it might have been 2014. So we were partnered with them even before the formation of the DE&I office. And the way she explained this and the way she justified this was the idea of a buffet. She said, so I'm a vegetarian, and I'm at the buffet, and I'm not just going to stop going to the buffet because they serve meat. They have what I need, and so I go there and I buy a package, and I have my dinner. And I brought up to her some problems with that analogy. The main problem being that this is not a buffet. We are not just going and selecting food. We are funding an organization that promotes far left things across the country. So I countered with an analogy that if I went to a buffet, and now this is a little closer to what is true. If I went to a buffet and they were advocating for children to be cut off from their parents, that their parents not know the counseling that their children are getting at this buffet, and this buffet was trying to tell them that little boys can be little girls and little girls can be little boys, then I would have a problem with that buffet. I would not go to that buffet. Even if they allowed me to keep my child next to me, I would not support them confusing children in that way. In the same way, if I went into a buffet and there was a drag queen there dancing on a pole and twerking in front of children and doing all this lewd stuff, I would not go to that buffet. And I think that's where Ottawa County has their issue. The people of Ottawa County do not want to be supporting an organization, giving our money to an organization that promotes far left things like transing children, confusing them about gender and sexuality, confusing them about drag queens, and promoting things like this. So that was just one analogy that I found unconvincing. Another one, one of her friends that was there, no names, they were trying to make the analogy of like the DEI office is kind of like making laws for the rules of the road. You know, so she was very careful to say this may not be accurate, but this is just an analogy. So say white people are driving around in a big old SUV and they say, why do I need to stop here? You know, I have a big old SUV. If somebody hits me, they're going to be toast. And so we all agree to these rules and these things. And the analogy goes that, you know, that's what the DEI office is. They're there to make guidelines that we all agree to and we all follow. Well, I found that unconvincing for one big reason is we have something like that. I mean, it's not an actual analogy. We have laws. We are a nation of laws. And so the idea that we need another government office to help us be equal under the law is not convincing to me. We already have laws. We already have a justice system. If those aren't doing what they're intended to do, then we need change on a local level so that our officials are administering justice in a proper way. We don't need another government. Like, if government's already failing at that respect, we don't need another government office, right? And now I want to be clear, Robyn Afrik, she seemed like a very nice person. She seemed like she was very, very interested in hearing what everybody had to say. But one other thing that we talked about was the idea of having pronouns in school, you know, allowing children to change their pronouns. And I actually brought up the fact that schools are not notifying parents of this, and which she agreed with me, actually, that schools should be notifying their parents if a child wants to go by a different pronoun or anything like that. We didn't get into, you know, the problems of, you know, CPS being called on parents for not allowing their children to use different pronouns and undergo surgery. But she brought up the counter argument that, well, what are you going to tell parents that do want to provide these things for their children? Right? And so I said, well, here's the problem with that. We are talking about such polar opposite things, right? That they can't come together. You know, you can't, I cannot support a parent that would want to take their children and mutilate their bodies and put them on hormones. And I know many other Ottawa County parents would agree with me that doing so is harmful to a child. So whether or not the parent thinks they're doing something right, it is proven that, you know, there are statistics out there. I'm not going to bring them up right now. I didn't have them prepared right now, but statistics bear out that after transition, these children are no less suicidal. And in fact, some children are more suicidal because they have undergone all these things that they can't take this stuff back. Once you start undergoing transition, you can't take it back. And so we've got a problem in our society of two people looking at each other from opposite ends, and both think that we're handling this problem in a way that is damaging to our kids, right? The far left thinks that talking to our children about God and about reality and telling them that no, you are not a little boy, you're a little girl, or no, you're not a little girl, you're a little boy. They would call that conversion therapy. So they think that we're harming children through conversion therapy. I think, and I believe I'm correct, that we are harming children by affirming these conversion therapy things. So we've got these two sides that both think that the other side is harming their children, whether or not they have good intentions. Now, I would argue that not everybody that transes their kids has good intentions. Some of them are putting it up on Twitter, on TikTok, on different social media platforms, looking for fame, looking to exploit that child and make them, kind of a celebrity or something like that. And then these children that have no idea what they're talking about. They don't know what a boy is, what a girl is, obviously. Children can barely distinguish the difference between reality and fantasy in regards to most things. That's why most children believe in Santa Claus and fairies and all that stuff. If an adult tells them that that's reality, then they will think it's reality. They will be confused. So that's kind of a summary of the discussion. We both agreed that, we want to help the people of Ottawa County. We want to keep this place as a family-friendly area where everybody feels welcome. But the conclusion that I've come to is we cannot just accommodate every single person based on every single, belief that they hold. It's just not possible. We hold diametrically opposing beliefs. So we've got to choose one, and I think Ottawa County has chosen. I don't know that the DE&I office has the ability to distinguish that. So, because their job is to sit and listen to every single person and try and make Ottawa County an accommodating place for them. But if far leftists come here and they want us to accommodate them, we've got to simply say no. We can't do that. We're not going to be a county that allows our doctors to trans children. We don't want to be a county that teaches in school that little boys can be little girls and little girls can be little boys. And we don't want to be a county that takes out curriculum on sex ed that parents agree with and that teaches children to wait until marriage. We don't want to take that out and replace it with instruction on how to have sex and how to have safe sex and teaching children, how to do all these things. So that's kind of my summary. Again, more to come from Miss Afrik. I'm going to actually allow her on to explain her viewpoints. And so hopefully you guys will be in tune for that. That'll be helpful to you. So I want to move into what the Grand Haven Tribune was talking about. So I'm just going to blast through this article. So put it on, 0.2 or 0.75 speed or something, because we are going here. And I may stop at a couple points. So just a few short years ago, the city of Grand Haven was voted the happiest seaside city in the nation. In Mary Poppins, the changing winds brought in good times. In Grand Haven, not so much. This Independence Day weekend, the state, park, beach, and the South Pier were closed due to fights. The physical fights on the shores of Lake Michigan were real, but no more real than the political fights taking place in the city and the county. At City Council, there have been questions raised about a $500 campaign contribution from a medical marijuana shop owner to Kevin McLaughlin. The medical marijuana business wasn't doing well, and he needed the council to vote for recreational also. The denial of wrongdoings were swift, but a $500 contribution in Grand Haven Council race is generous. That is very generous, $500 contribution. And it seems like there's a direct correlation here. They need the council to vote for recreational. A city council member got a campaign contribution for $500. I'm assuming that he'll be friendly. All right, so we continue. Then there's the question of council member Karen Lowe's resident status that finally came to the fore. I am told that residency is a tricky legal question, but it may be tricky for lawyers. But if you would ask the man on the street if a city council member should live in the city, not just own property in the city, you might spare yourself the attorney's fees and just go with what you know in your knower. I truly hope we haven't come to the point in Grand Haven that we need a lawyer to tell us if someone is a resident. I think we know. So one of the city council members, Karen Lowe, owns property in the city. She does not live there. So that's a big red flag there. The first qualification for an appointment to a Grand Haven board and commission seat is city residency. There are a few boards that allow a seat to non-residents, but those spots are few and specialized. This certainly does not extend to the city council itself. You must be a city resident to run for the Board of Light and Power, even though the service area is beyond city limits. Business owners who don't live in the city cannot vote in city elections, but still abide by the laws. Jurisdictional boundaries can be tricky. Before Grand Haven Township joined Harbor Transit, riders couldn't be taken to a certain medical facility across Robbins Road because it was in the township. There are serious issues, and these are serious issues and should not be trifled with. You either qualify or you don't. You are either a resident or you are not. Legal maneuvering shouldn't determine status. If you don't use the water, if your car is seldom there, you might not be a resident. There's a redneck joke in there somewhere. It was kind of lame, but we continue. There is more. We have real challengers to the status quo in the county commission race. Most of the incumbents have been there for some time. The challengers are well organized and serious about presenting alternatives to the present makeup of the commission. It is healthy to have real choices. So she's referring to the council, the county commissioners race, which I've been covering. I've talked to a couple of the commissioners. So she may, Miss Jerry McCaleb is the author here, and she may have actually referenced one of my interviews. I'm not sure if maybe she had the same interview question for Greg DeYoung, but here we go. City Council is supposed to be on a nonpartisan basis, but the county commission runs on a party slate. Most incumbent commissioners are members of the Republican Party, and most are facing challenges. In the August primary, the voters will decide which candidate will be on the November ballot. What seems to be happening is several of the Republican candidates are openly seeking and receiving Democrat help to win the primary. This is wrong on several levels. Michigan has an open primary system. Voters don't have to declare a party when they register. Primary voters will get a slate of candidates with both parties. They can vote for either slate but must stick to with one party or spoil the ballot. So Miss McCaleb is making the claim that some of the Republican candidates are openly seeking and receiving Democrat help to win this primary. That means they're asking voters that would vote Democrat to go and vote Republican in the primary so that they stay on the ballot, so that they stay in their seats, which I'm going to be asking some of them about. Since some Republican candidates are courting and being supported by voters who usually vote Democrat, these same voters will likely vote for other Republican candidates on the slate and influence the outcome of other races. You may say that's politics, but that's what gives politics a bad name. Shouldn't each side be free to choose their own candidates without interference? It's distasteful to me that some commissioners are so determined to keep their seats they will accept and encourage that type of influence. The biggest issues regarding the county commission have to do with the health department masking our children, the subsequent shutdown of Libertas School, and the commissioner's strong embrace of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Evidently, they think we fall short in that area. The candidates defend their support of DEI and say it makes Ottawa County a better place. Here's a reference to what Greg DeYoung was talking to me about. One candidate relayed the experience of a Latino gentleman, a professor at Hope College. He was working in his garden, wearing his working in the garden clothes, and he went to buy something at the hardware store. The clerk asked the man what farm he worked for. Evidently, the man was offended. But why? There is a long history of migrants following the growing season. They are super hardworking people. Many have become full-time residents. Some have started businesses, and some, like he, are college professors. The clerk looked at the man in his work clothes and made conversation with him. That to me is inclusive, not exclusive. For the professor to be offended says more about the professor than about Ottawa County. And that was my argument with Greg DeYoung. I'm like, shouldn't he be less offended about being associated with a migrant worker? Like, that seems kind of offensive to migrant workers, doesn't it? When I'm out and about, people ask me what's happened to Grand Haven. Everybody notices that something is amiss. I have a suggestion. Some things have changed since the cross is no longer raised on the hill overlooking the city. Maybe we should start looking there for answers. So, yeah, that's the article. I see, and I want to be clear. Ottawa County is a great place to live, but we have got some things that are going off track, right? We have got things that, we should not have city council members that don't live in the city. We shouldn't have county commissioners seeking help from Democrats to win their primary. And we certainly shouldn't have the people of Ottawa County being looked down on by our elected officials, saying that, we fall short in the area of inclusion. So that's that. I think I've said all I need to say on that. We can move on. So, Ottawa County deputies train for active shooter at Bowerwood Elementary in Jenison. So, let's dive into this. Sheriff's deputies and firefighters held an active shooter training session Thursday, June 7th at a local elementary school. Julie Robbie, the principal of Bowerwood Elementary, and said having on-site training is an important part of preparing for the unimaginable. Having an opportunity like this is pivotal for the safety of our kids, Robbie said. We work very closely with our Ottawa County Sheriff's Department and our police liaisons throughout the entire school year when we practice our drills, and so we just really see this as an opportunity to bring everyone together, police, fire, and be able to practice in the building. Now, I'm not going to go through this whole article. It's not very long. You can go and read it. But I will say here at the end of the article, it acknowledges the it doesn't. Okay. It said somewhere, I think. So, the shooting in Uvalde, police sat outside for 90-some minutes. And so, it's... Oh, yeah, right here. The police response to the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas in May has departments under a microscope. But first responders in Ottawa County say they've been committed to staying on top of the latest training for years. Training doesn't do a darn thing if the cops are going to sit outside and wait for backup. I'm not sure what their policy is. I have plans to talk to the sheriff's department eventually and with the sheriff and ask, if there is an active shooter situation, what is Ottawa County going to do? Are we going to sit and wait for, body armor and backup and all this other stuff? Or are the first cops that get there going to go in and apprehend the shooter at risk to their own lives? And I understand that there is risk to the lives of the cops. But there are other things we can do too, and I've talked about these things. We can arm the teachers. We can allow teachers to carry inside the schools. Eventually, when I'm teaching, I want to be armed. And I don't think that's too much to ask from our lawmakers. I believe that we are able to carry right now, but having less restrictions on teachers carrying would be very nice. So, will this training stop more shootings from happening? No, it is not going to deter shootings. the possibility of, actually enforcing, our laws that are on the books. If a person, so with the Uvalde, Texas shooter, he was openly saying that, he was gonna, or no, that was with the latest mass shooting, over the July 4th. So the shooter said openly that he was going to kill everyone, that he threatened his parents, he threatened his entire family, and the cops did nothing. He was still able to purchase a firearm even after all that. So the laws don't seem to be stopping people. Hopefully the training will help for the police response. It'd be great to get cops in there immediately. Or maybe we can just fill the school with guns, and so anybody that comes in knows that there are guns everywhere, and they can get blown away. So, moving on, Pete Buttigieg, Secretary of Transportation. He's come to Michigan. Yeah, plans to vote in the midterms. Yeah, look at that. So, bought a house in Traverse City 2 years ago, planning to move here, planning to vote Democrat in our red or in our purple state, because we're not having enough problems. We need more voters for the Democrat Party. So he's been campaigning around Michigan for Governor Whitmer. He was at the he was at the Mackinac Policy Conference on Mackinac Island, discussing the need for tax relief. Gas tax relief with Governor Gretchen Whitmer. So I don't know, maybe I agree with him on that, but I don't agree with him on just about everything else that he talks about. So, cool. It's not anything big. I don't think it's going to have a huge impact. I mean, he was kind of a failure in Ohio, I believe, is where he comes from. He was, let's see. Indiana. He was the former mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Got walloped in the presidential nomination. Couldn't get a single bit of support. So, and I don't think he was having too much success in South Bend, but Democrats, they fail up. So, if you're a bad mayor, but you toe the party line, you can become Secretary of Transportation. Yay! So, congratulations to Pete Buttigieg for his Michigan residency and for becoming Secretary of Transportation. Yay! All right, we're going to move on. So, I have kind of been keeping you up to date on what's been going on with the abortion laws. So, here's the timeline of events. Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade. An activist judge here in Michigan decided to place an injunction, which is usually placed on people. But she decided that injunctions can be placed on laws too. We talked about that last week. I showed you what an injunction is, its definition. Seems to apply to people, stopping people from doing things, but this we need to stop this law from doing things. So injunctions now apply to laws. So now the Republican legislature is asking the court to reverse the injunction in Planned Parenthood lawsuit. I'm sure that's going to go very well. We'll find out. So the Republican-led House and Senate asked the Michigan Court of Appeals on Wednesday to overturn an injunction against the state's 1931 law banning most abortions. The court-ordered injunction currently is the only measure keeping abortion legal in the state following the U.S. Supreme Court's overturning of the landmark Roe v. Wade case. Michigan Court of Claims Judy Elizabeth Gleacher issued an injunction against the 1931 law in May following a lawsuit from Planned Parenthood of Muskegon. Following lawsuit from Planned Parenthood of Michigan. Excuse me, too much coffee. On June 6th, the Michigan legislature, led by the Republicans in both chambers, asked the court to reconsider the injunction, appealing on behalf of Attorney General Dana Nessel. Nessel, a Democrat, has vowed not to appeal the injunction. So she's not going to, again, we have the three women from Michigan not wanting to work with the legislature at all. And, of course, she said previously that she's not going to enforce the law, even if it is overturned. If Roe versus Wade was overturned, she said, I will not enforce our 1931 law against abortions. So the latest appeal argues that Gleacher overstepped her judicial bounds in ordering the injunction, court documents show. Well, she sure did. If the Supreme Court of the United States says that they don't have the authority to strike down these laws, why is our Michigan Court of Appeals think that they have that power? I don't think they do. And they're going to have a really hard time making that case. So we had a couple of people that filed with the Court of Appeals on Monday. So not only is the legislature filing an appeal to the injunction, but also the Michigan Right to Life, the Michigan Catholic Conference, and a couple of county prosecutors have also appealed the injunction. The county prosecutors are Kent County Prosecutor Chris Becker and Jackson County Prosecutor Jerry Jarzinka. I didn't try and pronounce that before the show, so I have no idea if that's right. Abortions currently remain legal in Michigan due to the Court of Claims injunction. When the U.S. Supreme Court ruled June 24th to overturn Roe v. Wade, the issue of abortion returned to the states to individually decide its legality. Before the court's decision last month, access to abortion had been federally protected since 1973. Well, not quite federally, but the federal courts protected it. No other federal institution protected it. But I see that Biden is trying to be the next federal power to ensure these rights for all people. Biden just signed an executive order. You know, if we can't get it done through the courts, and if we can't get the legislature to make a law, we can just make it an executive order, and then everybody has to follow it, right? That's how well that goes. So we'll see how well Biden's executive order does, if it holds up under the Supreme Court, which it won't, because the Supreme Court has already said that the federal government does not have a right to make a new right up out of whole cloth and stick it in the Constitution. So Democrats are still twisting in the wind, trying desperately to keep abortion available for everybody. I don't think that it will work. So one last thing here before we go. MLive is covering some of the race as well here in in Zeeland, Michigan, Ottawa County's commissioner, or the county commissioner's 4th district seat. They're covering that. They seem oddly quiet about the entire Ottawa Impact, thing. 9 county commissioner. I mean, this is big news. Like, you would think that most of the state's papers would be covering the fact that 9 of the county commissioners in Ottawa County are being challenged, that it would be more of an interest to people. And I think it is. But we don't have a news media that is going to put that out there, because they don't want it. They don't want the county commission board overturned. They don't want for Ottawa to remain a solidly conservative county. So MLive is just covering one of them. So their first question, I read this answer from Jacob Bonema, and I thought it was spot on. He does very well at articulating his positions. So from this list, rate your 3 top priorities for the office of Ottawa County Commissioner. Funding for infrastructure and roads, land use, water quality, social services, lower taxes, safety, senior services funded through a countywide millage, redistricting, county commissioner allocations, discussed briefly. So he said the number one, social services, the Department of Health and the Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion have become political activists. Both need to be rebalanced with information and services that reflect the entire community it serves. Progressive activists are weaponizing our county health and DEI departments to over-sexualize and rob our children of their innocence. Now, I discussed a little bit ago the fact that the Ottawa County Health Department took out the Why Not Wait curriculum. They replaced it with Planned Parenthood's curriculum of teaching sex to children. So, yeah, he references that. I also believe that the color of your skin is not nearly important as the person inside. That's a good observation. Number 2, land use / water quality. That one, I don't know that that's really in dispute. And lower taxes, of course. I think our county commissioners both want lower taxes too, or that our actual county commissioners want our taxes to stay lowered. Matt Fensky talked about that a little bit, that was one thing he was very proud of, was our very low tax rate. So the next question I thought was, hit closely on what we've been talking about a little bit more with the Ottawa County Commissioners and their thoughts on the county as a whole and how we're doing with diversity, equity, and inclusion. So county commissioners have done, this is the question, county commissioners have done an effective job in leading the county in the last 2 years. Do you agree or disagree? Briefly explain. So Alan Dannenberg said that the county is in excellent shape. We have the 6th lowest millage rate out of 83 counties in Michigan. We are consistently rated very high in the areas of health, education, and employment. Jacob D. Bonema has a different perspective. He says, I was offended when the current commissioners ignored the citizens' voices and mishandled our civil liberties during the pandemic so poorly that it brought national negative press on Ottawa County. As your commissioner, I will never vote to close your church, cancel your event, or restrict you from gathering as a family. I am running to be your county commissioner to represent your voice and desire to stop the erosion of your civil liberties and stand against the liberal policies of the current commissioners. Commissioners serve you. Commissioners hire the department heads, approve budgets, and act as critical communications link to the City Council and townships. I am for listening, asking informed questions, and demanding measurable benefits in exchange for our county's time, talent, and treasure. So there's many more questions. You can go and you can read these. Jacob Bonema, as with the rest of, there was one more question. So you can go and read those. As with the rest of Ottawa Impact, Jacob Bonema is of the impression that Ottawa County could do better. We could do better at serving all of our citizens rather than just the ones that claim that they feel not included, or rather than just the ones that claim that we are not diverse. So with that, that is all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have suggestions about what you want to see on the show, email the show. Our email is straightnewsforyou, straightnewsforu@gmail.com. Send in topics that you're interested in. Send in politicians that you want to see interviewed. All that stuff. Like I said, I plan to talk with all the county commissioners. I've talked with 3 so far. 2 of them have full-length interviews. 1 is not being primaried, so there's no real sense in me doing a full-length interview with him. But the rest will be interviewed. So also hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Because the more subscribers I have, the closer I get to monetization. Yeah, then YouTube will pay me for doing this. So not very much, but every little bit helps, and it helps me get the word out. So subscribe, like it, share with your friends. I did a lot of door knocking this week just talking to people that I thought would be interested in the content. So if this content is helping you out, let me know. If it's not, let me know how I can make it better. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I'm Anon Don, and this is the Homes Politicast. We'll see you next time.